Hello English learners and welcome to another English video. In this video, we are going to learn how to pronounce all 50 states in the US and some cities in those states the correct way. So if learning how to pronounce all 50 states is something that you are interested in, keep watching. First state, Alabama. Alabama. Alabama.
Perhaps you are most familiar with this state, Alabama, from the famous Lynyrd Skynyrd song, Sweet Home Alabama. I think there's also a movie called Sweet Home Alabama with Reese Witherspoon. Some cities in Alabama would be Birmingham, and there would be a distinction between the city's pronunciation in the UK. We actually pronounce the H here in the States. Not sure why it's different, but we do. And also, there is Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery.
Alaska. Alaska.
Alaska is the 49th state to become a state, so it's a pretty new one. And some cities in Alaska are Juneau, which is the capital, and Anchorage, which is the largest city. And here is a picture of the Northern Lights, which can be seen from some places in Alaska.
Arizona. Arizona.
And Arizona is a very dry state in the west, lots of desert, and it gets very dry and hot in the summertime. Also home to the Grand Canyon and some cities in Arizona that you might be familiar with are Phoenix, the largest city and the capital, and Tucson.
Arkansas. Arkansas. Arkansas.
Arkansas, and pay close attention to the IPA transcription of the word because it is not said how it is spelled. It is close to how it is pronounced in French. We say Arkansas, Arkansas, and the capital of Arkansas is Little Rock. Little Rock. If you watch this show on Netflix called Ozarks, this is where it takes place. Or actually, part of the Ozarks are in Arkansas. And another part of it is in Missouri. But it's a great show if you like crime shows. This is a picture of the Ozarks right here.
California. California. California.
I'm sure you are all familiar with California because it's home to so many nice places. Hollywood, the redwood trees, Disneyland, and sometimes people refer to California as Cali for short. And some cities in California are Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Sacramento. And Sacramento is the capital of California.
Colorado. Colorado. Colorado.
And Colorado has nice skiing and nice hot springs. And also the Rocky Mountains are in Colorado. And some cities in Colorado are Denver, which is the capital, and Colorado Springs.
Connecticut. Connecticut. Connecticut.
And that second C in Connecticut is silent. So we don't say Connecticut, we say Connecticut. Connecticut. And cities in Connecticut are Hartford and Bridgeport. Hartford is the capital.
Delaware, Delaware, Delaware.
And Delaware is a very small state and the first state. So on the license plates for Delaware, they say Delaware, the first state. Delaware. And the capital of Delaware is Dover. Dover.
Florida, Florida, Florida.
Some people say Florida, Florida, but most just say Florida, Florida. It is called the Sunshine State. I was born in this state in a town called Cocoa Beach. Not very big, but apparently they have a nice beach. And some cities in Florida, the capital, Tallahassee, Miami, very international city, and Orlando.
Georgia, Georgia, Georgia.
And Georgia is a nice, charming southern state with nice, charming cities like Atlanta and Savannah, which is also a girl's name, not a very common girl's name. And you can see this sign here, which references a song by Ray Charles, Georgia on My Mind.
Hawaii, Hawaii, Hawaii.
And Hawaii was the last state to join the Union and far away from any other states. I think the native Hawaiians pronounced it with a V, Hawaii, but non-native Hawaiians just say Hawaii, Hawaii. And the capital of Hawaii is Honolulu, Honolulu.
Idaho, Idaho, Idaho.
And Idaho is known for their Idaho potatoes. And the capital of Idaho is Boise, Boise.
Illinois, Illinois, Illinois.
The S at the end there is silent, so we just say Illinois, Illinois. The capital of Illinois is Springfield, Illinois. Springfield is a very common name for a city here in the United States. And the largest city in Illinois is Chicago. I did hear some of my students incorrectly pronounce it Chicago, but it's actually a Chicago, Chicago.
Indiana, Indiana, Indiana.
And to be honest, I don't know much about Indiana other than that's where they have the Indianapolis 500 or the Indy 500, which is like a famous annual car race there. And the capital of Indiana is Indianapolis. Indianapolis.
Iowa, Iowa, Iowa.
Iowa is a state kind of in the middle of the continental U.S. And they grow lots of corn in Iowa. And the capital of Iowa is Des Moines. Des Moines.
Kansas, Kansas, Kansas.
And this is where Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz was from. She said, Toto, I don't think that we're in Kansas anymore. And a city, the capital of Kansas, is called Topeka. Topeka, Kansas.
Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky.
Kentucky is famous for its horse race, the Kentucky Derby, which happens annually. And Some cities in Kentucky are Frankfort and Louisville. Louisville, which is where the Kentucky Derby happens.
Louisiana, Louisiana, Louisiana.
And Louisiana is famous for its bayous, which is kind of like a swamp, and it's pictured right here. It's called a bayou. And some cities in Louisiana are New Orleans, New Orleans, which is the largest city, and Shreveport, Shreveport.
This one's easy. Maine, Maine.
And Maine is really northeast and touching the Canadian border. And some cities in Maine that you might be familiar with are Portland, Maine, and Bangor, Maine. And some people, you might have heard it pronounced Bangor, Bangor. But if you are from Maine, and people specifically from Bangor will correct you and say, no, it's not Bangor, it's Bangor.
Next, Maryland, Maryland, Maryland.
Some people might say Maryland, Maryland, with an extra syllable after mare, but it is definitely not Maryland. We do not say Maryland. Maryland or Maryland. And some cities in Maryland are Baltimore and Annapolis. Annapolis is the capital of Maryland.
Little challenging. Massachusetts, Massachusetts, Massachusetts.
This one might be a little difficult to pronounce. Massachusetts. Massachusetts. And Massachusetts is home to some prestigious universities like Harvard and MIT. And a city in Massachusetts that you might know of is Boston. Boston, Massachusetts.
Next, Michigan, Michigan, Michigan.
Yes, and Michigan is also pretty far north, touching Canada, the Canadian border. And some cities in Michigan are Detroit, which is also known as the Motor City or Motown. Lots of legendary musicians were signed to Motown Records. And another city in Michigan is Lansing, Lansing, Michigan.
And Minnesota, Minnesota, Minnesota.
And in Minnesota, you will find the Twin Cities, which consist of Minneapolis and St. Paul. They're right next to each other.
Mississippi, Mississippi, Mississippi.
And Mississippi is another southern state. We also have a river by that name here called the Mississippi River. And some cities in Mississippi would be the capital, Jackson, and Meridian, Mississippi.
Missouri, Missouri, Missouri.
And in Missouri, we have cities like Kansas City, Jefferson City, which is the capital of Missouri, and St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis. St. Louis is the backdrop for the famous film Meet Me in St. Louis with Judy Garland.
Montana, Montana, Montana.
And in Montana, you'll find cities like the capital, Helena, and Billings, Montana.
Nebraska, Nebraska, Nebraska.
And in Nebraska, you can find cities like Omaha, Omaha, Nebraska, which is the largest city, and also Lincoln, Nebraska, which is the capital. And we don't pronounce that second L. We just say Lincoln, Lincoln, like the president.
Nevada, Nevada, Nevada.
And in Nevada, you will find cities like Carson City, Reno, Nevada, and the pretty famous city of Las Vegas, Nevada.
New Hampshire, New Hampshire, New Hampshire.
Make sure you say New Hampshire, New Hampshire, not New Hampshire. Okay. And in New Hampshire, you'll find Concord, New Hampshire. Concord, a major city there.
New Jersey, New Jersey, New Jersey.
And New Jersey is known as the Garden State, which you can see on this license plate here. Some cities in New Jersey are Trenton, New Jersey, Trenton, the capital, and also Newark, Newark.
New Mexico, New Mexico, New Mexico.
New Mexico is the state in the southwest, the southwestern part of the U.S., and some cities in New Mexico are Albuquerque, and Santa Fe, New Mexico.
New York, New York, New York.
And New York is one of the larger states, at least population-wise. And some cities in New York can be the city of New York City, the capital, Albany, and Buffalo, New York.
North Carolina, North Carolina, North Carolina.
And North Carolina is in the southeastern part of the United States. And some cities in North Carolina that you might want to be familiar with are Raleigh, North Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina.
North Dakota, North Dakota, North Dakota.
And then we have North Dakota, a very cold state, in the wintertime at least. I've never been there. And some cities in North Dakota are Minot, North Dakota, and Bismarck, North Dakota.
Ohio, Ohio, Ohio.
And Ohio is a state, one of the states that we refer to as being in a region called the Midwest, United States. And some cities in Ohio that you might be familiar with are Cincinnati, and Columbus, Ohio.
Oklahoma, Oklahoma, Oklahoma.
And this was a famous Broadway play, right? Oklahoma. And in Oklahoma, we have cities like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and also Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oregon, Oregon, Oregon.
And in Oregon, you will find cities like Portland, Oregon, and also Salem, Oregon.
Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania.
Some cities in Pennsylvania are Philadelphia, and Philadelphia was a former capital of the U.S. before Washington, D.C., and a very beautiful city. And we also have Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh.
Rhode Island, Rhode Island,
And Rhode Island is the smallest state in the U.S. And a city in Rhode Island would be Providence, Rhode Island. Providence.
South Carolina. South Carolina. South Carolina.
And South Carolina has cities like Columbia, South Carolina, and Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston.
South Dakota. South Dakota. South Dakota.
And in South Dakota, we have Mount Rushmore, which is pictured right here. And some cities in South Dakota are Sioux Falls, and Pierre.
Tennessee. Tennessee. Tennessee.
Cities in Tennessee are Nashville. Nashville is called the home of country music. They have great live country music. And Memphis, Tennessee has world famous barbecue.
Texas. Texas.
Texas is one of the largest states. And some cities in Texas are Austin, which is the capital, and Houston, which is one of the largest cities in the U.S.
Utah. Utah. Utah.
And a city in Utah is Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City.
Vermont. Vermont. Vermont.
And Vermont is a far northeastern state. And some cities in Vermont are Burlington, Vermont, and Montpelier. And of course, this is the American English pronunciation. It's definitely pronounced differently in French, but that's how we say it here in the States. Montpelier.
Virginia. Virginia. Virginia.
This is a state where I have called home, and some cities in Virginia are Richmond, Virginia, and Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, we don't pronounce that L. We don't say Norfolk, we say Norfolk.
Washington. Washington. Washington.
So we have a capital called Washington, D.C., and also a state called Washington. This is the state. And some cities in this state are Seattle, and Spokane.
West Virginia. West Virginia. West Virginia.
And pictured here in West Virginia are the famous Blue Ridge Mountains. And the capital of West Virginia is Charleston.
Wisconsin. Wisconsin. Wisconsin.
And some cities in Wisconsin are Madison, which is the capital, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Lastly, Wyoming. Wyoming. Wyoming.
And a city in Wyoming would be Cheyenne, which is also a girl's name, Cheyenne.
And that is the end of today's video on the pronunciation of all 50 states in the United States and some cities. If you like this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section if you have any more questions. And until next time, English learners.